Behind the Screens. I'm your host, Matthew Wilcher. I'm afraid that we will not be joined by my co-host, Leah Jackson, this week, but we're really looking forward to her returning in the very near future. I'm honored to have as my guest for this week an immensely important figure in the Heroes of New Earth community. He's the host of Podcast. He's been an esports shoutcaster for over 2 years. He's been sent to Sweden and Singapore for tournament coverage, and he's a partner at S2 Games. Behind the Screens is excited to have Nick BreakyCPK Karras as tonight's guest. Nick, how are you? And apparently we lost Nick, so I'm going to vamp for a little bit, just talking about myself. So I'm sitting here. I like my tie. I hope that y'all can see it. I got a lot of comments on the last show talking about how I need to not look like a CEO or not act like I'm looking like a CEO. And I'm just going to say this to all y'all haters out there. I love my tie. I'm not getting rid of my tie. And that is the no spin zone, as O'Reilly would say. But I believe we're going to go back into our intro music while we get Nick back on the line. And until then, I am looking forward to seeing you all very soon. Okay, we're back. And I believe that we are all still on the Skype call. Nick, are you there?
I am here. I
That
definitely
is awesome. Um, so what just happened?
I have no clue. I use Skype all the time. Obviously, I do a lot of streaming myself. I do my own podcast. I mean, it just literally just crashed on me. I thought it was my internet at first, but that was fine. So, anyways, I'm back. I it should be fine. So I'm ready to go once again.
Awesome. We'll just go straight into the interview. Um,
All right.
so let's just start with your childhood. Where did you grow up? And tell us everything until, let's say, I don't know, the end of your academic career.
Okay. My whole life in a couple of minutes. All right. So basically, I grew up in San Diego, California. Good old sunny San Diego, California. Oh, how I miss thee. Unfortunately, I live in Michigan right now due to work, which is a good thing, I guess. But I grew up in San Diego my whole life. So that's where I was born and raised. Specifically, Poway, California. It's a city in San Diego. So if anyone knows that area. Pretty much, I was one of those people that never moved around. I basically lived in the same house for a good 15 years of my life, so I didn't get the chance to explore too much outside of that area. But I went to school all throughout there. Eventually, graduated from high school from Poway High School in Poway, California, and I ended up going to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. It's a college in Central California where funny story on that. I actually wanted it was the silliest thing because a big part why I went to that college was one because I had several friends that were going, including my girlfriend at the time. And then also I had a couple family members that had gone there. So, however, I wasn't the greatest student in terms of GPA, to be honest. A lot of that came down to simply because I didn't really study too hard. I was a gamer, so that ended up taking a lot of my time, and unfortunately, I didn't focus as much as at school as I probably should have. So with that said, to get into the college, I ended up having to get in initially the easiest way possible, which was simply by going in with a major or declaring a major from the beginning, where it ended up being agriculture systems management, which is
So
basically a fancy term for farm science or farm business.
that's a long way from gaming.
Very long way, yes. um, yeah, it was basically something I wasn't too interested in. Although when I grew up, my sister actually was involved with 4-H. She was involved a lot around animals, the pigs, the cows, the chickens, the horses. So I was, by association, I happened to be involved with that somewhat, but that definitely wasn't my forte, to say the least. So the ultimate goal was to go there originally, declaring that, but then eventually switching over to computer science or computer
Right.
engineering, something like that.
So you mentioned your sister. Do you have any other siblings?
I do not. My sister is my only sibling. Andrea is her name. So she is my only sibling. I think I'm fortunate for that. I definitely
Older or younger?
she is older. She's
Older.
2 years older, I believe. Yeah. She's 2 years older than me, so yeah, I'm very I'm happy with that. As much as I think about it, I have thought about it. It would be cool to like have a brother, whatever, maybe have a younger sibling. But I do love her obviously, and she definitely has taught me a lot, and I appreciate her. So
Something that a lot of people never really disclose often is your middle name. So what is it? Or do you have one?
my middle name is Rodriguez. No, I'm
Rodriguez.
just kidding. That would be
Oh,
that would
that
be.
would be hilarious.
My middle name is Alan. Nicholas Alan Karras is my full name.
And you've talked a lot about your obviously your academic history because that's what I asked you to. But what did your parents do?
My parents, well, my mother, she was actually more on the side of dealing with admission in schools like high schools, middle schools. She actually, when we went to middle school, when we went to high school, she actually worked in the administration office for both of those. So she was more of a clerk style person. She did paperwork. She definitely did. She did the computer work. She was the loving mother that had to stay near her children, basically. So my father, as far as he's concerned, he's simplest way to put it, he's airplane engineer, I guess. I'm not
Oh,
even exactly sure on
very
the
fun.
technical term, but he deals with airplanes. He's on the more technical side, computer side. So you could say that's definitely what helped me get into what I do nowadays, in a sense, with gaming.
So did you have a love of airplanes while growing up, or because
See,
of
the
that,
funny
or
thing is, I personally didn't. That he was more of the hands-on, the more building things, the more because my grandfather, he was actually an architect. So
Hmm.
he was obviously into the whole building things, and it definitely went down to my father. Hands on, as I said, building the rockets. Well, the rockets they shoot in the air, not actual NASA rockets, but things like that. So, me personally, though, I was never really into that side. I was into the computer sitting down and playing video games once again. So that was more of it for me, not necessarily the airplane side or anything like that.
You said that you had lived for 15 years in the same home. Do you want to describe it for us, or tell us any
Um,
stories about it?
well, like I said, my sister, she was actually really heavily involved in 4-H. By the way, kind of a side thing, I see people trying to spell my name Nicholas. It's actually spelled with a K. It is very rare, but Nikoles. That actually comes from my Greek origin. My father's side is all Greek over there, so it's actually spelled that way. And Karis is actually short for Karaslovakias. But it was one of those when they came over from Greece, they ended up shortening it to Karis, to make it easier, I guess. So,
Yeah, I'm really
anyways,
glad that it's Karis because I
yes,
wouldn't have been able to pronounce it at the beginning of the show.
I am thrilled that that happened. I would not, the Karaslovakias would not have been too fun to carry around. But going back to where I grew up though with my house. So like I said, I did live for a good 15 years of my life or so, good to Poway, California. I actually lived in about a half acre of land. Like I said, going back to my sister, she's really heavily involved with animals and whatnot. So we ended up having things like a chicken coop with up to 20 chickens at a time. We had several pigs at a time. We had 2 horses for a good time of that. We even had a goat for a good time of that. So yeah, again, that kind of goes back to the me being the farmer in a way. I did 4-H a little bit myself, but yeah, so that was kind of my life growing up at home specifically was dealing with that. So
So with all those animals, did you differentiate between the animals that were pets or livestock? I mean, it's
well, other than the chickens we raised for obviously the eggs and whatnot. Well, I shouldn't say that because there was actually one of the pigs we did raise to eventually be butchered and eaten. Of course, it wasn't necessarily a pet. Although when you're young, when you're kids, when you have something like that, you think of it as a pet ultimately.
right.
Um, I did get to witness the whole butchering process and from the very beginning, which definitely is one of those real moments that you think about. This is something that happens all the time. I mean, that's how we get our bacon after all.
Yeah, I
That's a
mean,
good
pigs
thing.
are a magical animal. You feed them
Yes.
apples and they create bacon.
It's weird how
So,
that works, right?
yeah, I know.
But yeah, that wasn't too fun having to witness that. But I think at the same time, it is obviously educational and it is definitely worth it. But other than that, it mainly were for pets, dogs, never cats. I was not a cat person. I never had a cat in my life. Always dogs. So
Okay. Uh, Continuing on with childhood stuff, who was your best friend while growing up?
my best friend. Well, I guess when I was a child, there was a really good friend of mine. I pretty much hung out with him through middle school and high school, actually elementary school for that matter as well, for all the way through, eventually until we graduated. Um, I see some on-the-fly editing going on. That's fun. Um, his name is Andy. Andy is a very good friend of mine. We did everything together, from just going out to parties that we went to throughout high school, obviously, and playing sports together. We met up in second grade, I think it was, and we were the troublemakers. We were the class clowns. We were the guys that we would just have our fun times. We would look over at one another. We would just start laughing hysterically because again, back in second, third grade, that's what you did. And then we would have to go to the book, write our name for getting in trouble. And then the teacher hated us for that. But yeah, we had some good times together.
So what were some of those? What was some of the mischief that you got into?
Duh. It's nothing too crazy. I mean, I'm not gonna sit here and act like I was this really rebellious kid by any means. I honestly, I was more of the safe kind of kid. I was more of the, stay away from stuff that could possibly hurt you. I was never really that crazy adventurous. Although I grew up around camping, I grew up around hiking, I grew up around that. So I guess in that sense, I kind of was. But I did Boy Scouts. Um, but
No
as
big
far as
pranks or anything like that?
what's that?
No big pranks that you
Well,
ever pulled?
that's what I was gonna say. As far as mischief goes, I mean, I did the typical, toilet papering, stuff like that. I did have one incident where we did get some dog crap, put it in a bag, and put it in front of somebody's house, burn it. There was one time I did that, and let's just say we were found out eventually from that.
Wow.
So definitely got in some trouble. But the typical, the toilet papering, whatnot. Nothing too crazy though, I guess.
Okay. Well, while we're before we go into the later part of your life after your childhood, we're going to take a 30-second break, and this break is you're going to see a teaser for what you're going to see later. Underline Entertainment is our sponsor so far for the show, and we are debuting their newest parody on this show in about 20 minutes, but you're going to get a teaser for that.
Meet Dan, 26 years old. After losing match after match in his division, something smells awfully cheesy when his first pro builds a pylon outside of his opponent's base. Once again, his conscience comes into play.
Now listen to me, while he's macro and free, proxy a pylon and slip in some DPs. Now all you gotta do is A move and he's so screwed.
Yo, he said have fun, don't be so rude. You shouldn't have to cheese to win, that's not fair.
Yo, just look at his rank. You think that I care? Cheese this bitch right here on the spot bed till he rages out and rips out all of his damn hair.
Man, did you see what happened bit by bit?
No, but I seen the 7 racks TLO just did.
Shit, you trying to do anything to prevail?
Man, fuck that. Cheese this bitch BM and bail.
Meet Brady, a 39-year-old retired Brood War pro. After coming back to the scene with the release of StarCraft 2, he sends a worker to scout around his opponent's base to find a spawning pool completed and 6 Zerglings running into his base.
What the?
All right, that was your teaser for what we're gonna hear and see later. There's actually a video to go along with it, a music video for the song, and it's Underline does some awesome stuff. Go check them out, and we will be showing you that in the not too distant future. So stick around. Back to the interview, I guess.
I'm excited for that song, by the way. I was a big fan of Eminem growing up. I was a big fan of Guilty Conscience and the Eminem song. So
yeah, this parody is phenomenal, and as I said, Underline does a lot of good stuff.
I got the chance to see them at NASL, the finals, the #1 finals, actually live in person, and yeah, they were a lot of fun to watch, and it's always good to have parodies like that. We have actually had for Han a couple of parodies ourselves, and it's always fun how people are so clever to think of stuff like that and do it at very well too. So
in
yeah,
Han, do you have anyone in particular that's really good at it?
There's a guy named Nerdboy715. If you go to the YouTube, you can actually type in Nerdboy715. For people that know myself, know Han, they know this because I played all the time on our cast. He's done 4 songs that are just parodies of popular dance style songs like Dynamite and stuff like that. So yeah, they're pretty awesome. They're pretty awesome.
Well, back to your life, going back there. So,
right.
Leaving childhood, you discover people that you're interested in. What was the worst date that you ever went out on?
The worst date that I
Or
went.
best. I mean, it's up to you.
Or best, okay. I was never, to be honest, I'm not going to sit here and lie. This is supposed to be, tell all after all. I didn't go out on many, many dates by any means. There was one girl throughout high school that it was definitely an on and off relationship that I had. Um, so I definitely had some good times, but there was one time, one bad day moment. It was basically the first kiss moment. You know, as I'm sure we all have done with the whole being somewhat nervous about it. Hey, at least I was. I'm man enough to admit, but um, it got to a point where like it was obvious that it was about to happen. Then all of a sudden, I'm like, my breast might smell, by the way. So I'm just saying. She's just like, that's not something you say. We're about to do this, and I'm like, I know, I'm sorry, and then we ended up doing it. We ended up, making out though. So that was good at least, I guess. But
Cheers to
yeah,
that.
I still have no clue why I said that. That was just silly, but that would have to be as far as my worst date moment that I've had. So
You know, everyone sticks their foot in their mouth every once in a while.
yeah.
But so we've we, continuing on the academic thing. Sorry.
It's Blue Moon, by the way. I got people asking in chat what the beer is that I'm drinking. Fan of Blue Moon.
The which Blue Moon is it? I didn't see.
Just the Belgian white one you usually put in
Oh
orange.
yeah, the blue label, not the white. Okay, I'm going to not talk about beer now. Because so you talked briefly about you being a not the best student academically because you were a gamer, and you also mentioned partly because teachers didn't like you because you were a little bit of a troublemaker every once in a while. Do you want to tell us a little bit about how you felt you could have done better academically, or if you could go back, what would you change?
Well, as far as the being a troublemaker, honestly, that was more early on. When I got to high school, really, with let's be honest, that's where it really starts to matter somewhat with your grades and with what you do. I wasn't necessarily the troublemaker. In fact, I was a very shy person. I was very very shy. If you ask anyone that I grew up with, that I was friends with, I was not outgoing very very much at all. I was very shy. So I was that guy that kind of stuck in the background and never really liked to bring attention to himself. On that note, as far as looking back and what I could have done better when it came to school, ultimately would have been setting my priorities because 100% I know that since I'm a gamer and when it came down to it, I chose to make decisions, invest in my life into video games. For a good portion of high school, it ended up being Counter-Strike, especially in the early on years where I thought I was going to be the next Fatality, FPS gamer. I thought I was going to be the next Warden, whatever. I mean, any big name Counter-Strike player. So I invested so much time into it. I didn't do enough focus on homework and studying as I nearly should have, and that's ultimately what led to my downfall. So I was very. I don't. I almost said athletic. I wasn't necessarily very athletic, but I did sports every single time I could too. Every single season, I did sports, and I was much more in shape than I was now. That's for sure.
What sports in particular?
I played football in the fall, basketball in the spring or in the winter, and track and field in the spring. So I was, the three sport athlete all throughout. Football, I did all 4 years. Basketball, the first 2 years, unfortunately, I ended up going from being the tallest guy in middle school to the smallest, basically. And with basketball, it doesn't work too well, obviously.
Right. Right.
And then track and field, I did long distance running. No, I like to joke about that. Of course not. I did shot put and discus, actually. The fat man's track and field. Good time.
What would you say your biggest achievement athletically was?
Biggest achievement athletically. Well, growing up, I mean, before high school, like I said, especially before high school, I was the biggest guy out there, both in height and size. So I was able to take advantage of that when it came to basketball, especially. I didn't play football before high school because I was too big, so I didn't get the chance to do that. But as far as my standout achievement, it was probably my freshman year of high school, where I was a starter on our freshman basketball team, and we ended up going undefeated throughout the whole season. I think ended up being 18-0 or 19-0, something like that. So that would definitely have to be my crowning achievement. I was very, very close to getting to Qualcomm Stadium, which is where the San Diego Chargers play. football, because every single year the San Diego High School Championships are actually held at Qualcomm. We made it to the semifinals. We ended up losing, but so that definitely would have been, but unfortunately, I didn't make it all the way.
Do you remember who you lost to?
Vista Panthers, you bastards. They're they were a very good team though. Obviously, excellent defense, and I played offensive line for those that are curious. Again, go figure. I played right guard though in football.
So, who was it in gaming or was it elsewhere that your idol as a child or growing up? Did you even have someone that you really looked up to the most?
That's that's obviously a really tough question, but as far as an idol of mine, I guess for an eventual career, it would have had to been Chick Hearn, and I'm sure you being in the radio industry, you've definitely heard of him, perhaps. You know who I'm talking about?
Putting you can pretend that I.
All right, Los Angeles
yes.
Lakers legendary basketball announcer. He passed away 4 or 5 years ago or something like that. But anyways, he's I've definitely found myself being very involved in sports, not only playing them, especially when I was in school, but watching them as well. Basketball is pretty much my top tier sport, on which ones I want to like to watch. Up there with football, but and he definitely he was. I just really enjoyed listening to him. Really enjoyed watching him. I would love the Lakers, of course, and he's definitely a big part why I first pursued after being a sportscaster and pursued after doing a career eventually that I knew that I would love and wanted to get into. So I guess if I had to choose an idol in that sense, then it'd be Chick Hearn.
So would you say that he was the person that influenced you the most in your life, or just the person you looked up to?
Influence, no. Like you said, person I looked up to. As far as influence goes, it's gonna sound cheesy, probably, but I'm a mama's boy. It was my mother, no doubt. She's definitely done so much for me, and I know that I'm very thankful that I have both parents, just a loving family in general that has always been supportive of me, always been around me, and about my mother though, she definitely stands out as being somebody that I've always looked up to, and she's definitely helped me go in the right direction. So,
did your parents raise you religious at all?
My very early years, my parents, not necessarily. It was more my grandparents. Like I said, they were Greek. My father's side, they're 100% Greek. They came over from Greece in the around I think in 1950, something like that, in the 1950s but they've always been very religious. They're Greek Orthodox. Like I said, earlier on, I've occasionally went to church, occasionally to Sunday school, but ultimately I was never really involved in religion or anything like that. And to this day, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm an atheist by any means or anything like that, obviously, but I'm just not a kind of person that really involves myself in that kind of thing. So.
And how were you raised politically? Or were you raised in a political family at all?
I was raised to believe everything Rush Limbaugh says. No, a Republican is basically what both my parents are. But kind of the same. No, they're much more into politics than they are religion. But they didn't necessarily, like you kind of said at the end there, or was I even? I really wasn't. I mean, and even to this day, I have actually yet to vote. And I have no problem saying that. I mean, I've yet to vote in an election. And my logic on that is simply that if I don't care to invest my time into researching who to vote for, why should I bother? Why should my vote actually count when I've done zero research, when I've done no research to even... Because honestly, I would just be guessing. I would just be going, okay, I've heard of that name. I'll vote for him. And I think that should be more the mentality, honestly, overall. But... we do get a lot of people that say, yeah, this guy, he looks cool on TV, and I want to be like him, so I want to vote for him. And they don't even think about what they're actually saying, though. So I think it's a little silly, but...
Cool. So continuing on with sort of beliefs that you have, are there any charities that you strongly support or any causes that you strongly support? I think that we all support child's play in the gaming community. But other than that,
I'm not gonna sit here and lie about it. Honestly, I really have never donated in terms of big donations. At least, like occasionally I'll drop quarters or drop dollars even in the bins that they have at the superstores or whatever for children or whatever. But I'm not actively out there looking to support a cause. I mean, I definitely wouldn't put it past me for the near future and in the future to do something like that. But just for now, it's not something I've really invested time into. So.
what about uh, moving away from your beliefs? And we've already, I guess, possibly touched on this with the worst date. But what is the most embarrassing moment that you can think of in your life that you would be willing to share with our audience?
I'd be willing to share. Um, I was definitely thinking about this earlier because this is the interesting thing about doing an interview like this. It really does get you thinking about your life and about like what you've actually been through, and it definitely brings up memories that you wouldn't think of otherwise. But and it's not going to be anything crazy, but going back to the premises that I was talking about earlier, how I've always been a very shy person.
Mhm.
I never have been a public speaker. And on that note, there was a class that I had to take in eventually community college, which after I dropped out of college, which I guess I didn't even talk about earlier, but simply put, after my first year of college at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, I dropped out 100% due to video games, specifically World of Warcraft. So I came back to San Diego and eventually just went to community college. That's where I eventually took a radio broadcasting class and eventually led me to here where I am today. But anyways, with community college, there was a public speaking class just doing general eds and whatnot. Public speaking was one of the classes, and I was at a point where there was a speech that we had to give, and coming up to the very first speech that I through high school I've found my way to get out of them, but in this class I wasn't able to do it, so I ended up having to go up and give a speech. I don't even remember what the topic was, but it was one of those cases where I just start sweating like crazy. My hands just start shaking. I'm standing in front of a classroom of 20 plus people, whatever, and I'm just sitting there like, and you get that stutter in your voice, and you're just like all like locking up and everything. And oh my God, I ended up just totally freezing. And I eventually just said, I got to go outside. And I just like went out the door and I went outside. And so that would have to be for me, a very obviously odd moment for me. One that doesn't shine for me, but it's like I said, you live, you learn, and here I am today talking about video games and casting in front of thousands of people every day. So
Yeah, and
go
now
figure.
do you feel that that experience helped you with your overcoming a fear of speaking in front of lots of people, or?
See, I don't even know where this turn happened. I really don't. I went from being a very shy, very not open person, very scared to talk in front of a lot of people person to the biggest experience that I had was, casting online is one thing. Obviously, you're not looking at all these people in front of you. I mean, that's the first given that it makes it a little bit easier. Now, when I went to Sweden in, I believe it was 2010, the summer of 2010, Summer DreamHack, the first time I've even been out of the States in the first place. I went there, though, on behalf of Honcast because it was the Heroes of Newer tournament that was there. It was the first Heroes of Newer tournament, big LAN. So I went there to cover it. And we did our coverage just at our own little booth. So again, it was nothing too crazy. We had a lot of fun with it. But then near the end of it, they were so, impressed. They're so pleased with what we were doing. They're like, how would you like to be the casters? How would you like to be the live caster in front of 1,000 plus people in this big arena that we have? I'm sure you've heard of it, the arena that they have at DreamHack.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And so, here I am. I start walking up. I'm actually at the bottom of the stage to come in. Then I start walking up the stairs to go where I cast because at that time they had the casters like way up top.
Mhm.
And I was nervous as hell. Again, I was getting all like sweating. I was like thinking to myself, "Oh my God, like how am I gonna do this? This sucks." But people started cheering for me. They're like Breaky, and they started clapping and everything, and I'm just like, wow. I mean, what I'm doing actually has an impact on people. What I'm doing, people really do appreciate. And I say this all the time. I never take for granted, where I'm at and what I've been able to accomplish with so little time and being a shoutcaster. So I definitely, it's almost as if that moment where it kind of just switched for me, and I'm just like, just go with it, just have fun.
Right.
And so I went through that and I had a good time, and ever since then, I've been pretty comfortable in terms of talking in front of a lot of people and casting. But even on a show like this, where I knew I was going to come on and talk some personal stuff, and I got nervous, and I still get nervous all the time. But I don't do that whole shaking and
right.
whatnot.
So, what about your most embarrassing moment in gaming?
Embarrassing moment in gaming, huh? Jeez.
Do you have one?
Well, one I guess that would have to come to mind is World of Warcraft. Going back to that, where back in Vanilla WoW, where you're doing your 40-man raids, you're raiding Molten Core back in the very beginning, and you accidentally, I was a warlock, was my first raiding character, and you accidentally dot something that you're not supposed to dot up, and so sure enough, a core hound goes from the bottom, he starts coming all the way around, and people are like, wait a second, what's going on? They see a corruption dot on it, I'm like, yeah, that was definitely me. Everyone wipes, everyone dies, and so, you waste everyone's time, 40 people's time for the next 10, 15 minutes because of that, but I don't know, that's something that just comes to my mind, I guess, initially.
Just on an offshoot of that, do you think that it was a good thing that WoW eventually moved to a smaller raiding environment instead of 40 people? Just for that reason?
Just for that reason? No.
Okay.
WoW eventually went to that because it wanted to be more appealing to the casual crowd. It wanted to be more appealing to the crowd that not have to think that it's going to be hardcore, and it wanted to make more money ultimately, which is of course what Blizzard has been about now, and what any business is going to be about. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but yeah, trust me, I miss those days. I do. I miss those days of 40-man raiding and whatnot,
and using every single potion that was available, and
only 8 debuffs on the unit that you can kill.
Yeah.
I mean, so you have to be very careful with your debuffs. You have to be careful, wait for at least 2 or 3 sunders before you can start even damaging it. Yeah. It's just
the Onyxia wipe video. How many views does that have?
More thoughts,
Anyway,
more thoughts.
We're gonna switch into the Underline video. I really hope that you guys like it. Underline is a great company, and they do some awesome stuff. And here is their newest StarCraft II parody.
Meet Teddy, 17 years old. Fed up with Zerg and always over droning. He decides to switch to toss, but as he is searching for a match, he has a sudden change of heart, and suddenly, his conscience comes into play.
Alright, stop. Now before you queue in the game with that shameful race that you about to be playing, you better think of the consequence. Why? I'm your pro gaming conscience.
That's nonsense. Go in, proxies are funny. Switch it up to Protoss quick. Cannon is damn main. Telling me sucks dick. Telling me needs to save his base. You'll be safe for days if you proxy raise or 2K just the same.
Yeah, but if the replay leaks and then it shows you the whole forum, they know you and they'll expose you. Think about it before you pick Protoss. Look at your profile, it don't even show loss.
Yo, fuck that. Protoss, bitch. Choose that shit. Can you afford to lose this shit? Are you that big? Why you give a fuck if he cries? Are you that kid? You really think he gives a fuck that you're masters?
Man, don't pick it, cause 4 gate is ridiculous. Don't even risk it. Come on, switch, kid. Don't even listen to suspense. He's bad for you.
You know, Tempo, I don't like your attitude.
Meet Dan, 26 years old. After losing match after match in his division, something smells awfully cheesy when his first pro builds a pylon outside of his opponent's base. Once again, his conscience comes into play.
Now listen to me, While he's macroing free, proxy a podline and slip in some DTs. Now all you gotta do is A move and he's so screwed.
Yo, he said have fun, don't be so rude. You shouldn't have to cheese to win, that's not fair.
Yo, just look at his rank. You think that I care? Cheese this bitch right here on the spot bare till he rages out and rips out all of his damn hair.
Man, ain't you seen what happened bit by bit?
No, but I seen the 7 racks TLO just did.
Shit, you trying to do anything to prevail?
Man, fuck that. Cheese this bitch BM and bail.
Meet Brady, a 39-year-old retired Brood War pro. After coming back to the scene with the release of StarCraft 2, he sends a worker to scout around his opponent's base to find a spawning pool completed and 6 Zerglings running into his base.
What the fuck?
Alright, calm down, relax, start breathing.
Fuck that shit. You just caught this bitch cheesing. While you macro up, he's being gay, plus he walled off. Fuck being a pro, BM this faggot's head off.
Wait, what if there's an explanation for his play?
What? He tripped, fell, landed on 1A?
Alright, don't panic, maybe he's got cannons, but you can still manage without being bad mannered.
Okay, thought about it. Still wanna BM him? Attack him at his choke, hack his rattle and disconnect him? That's what I did. Be smart, don't be a retard. You gonna take advice from somebody who cheesed white wrong?
What'd you say?
What's wrong? Didn't think I remember?
I'ma kill you, motherfucker.
Templar, Mr. Safe, Mr. Pro in the day, Mr. Hey, coming straight out of Boston, y'all better make way. How in the fuck you gonna tell this man how to be managed?
Cause he can still win by playing it standard. Macro, oh fuck it, what am I saying? Jesus knew Brady, where's your forge at?
And we're back. I really hope you guys enjoyed the Underline song. As I've said so many times before, Underline is so creative and so brilliant. That song is great. What did you think, Nick?
Like I said earlier, just from the teaser, I love Eminem. I love the Guilty Conscience song especially. I think it's pretty awesome, and the fact that they did a take on that for StarCraft 2. By the way, I'm a huge fan of StarCraft 2. Again, for people that do know me, it's no secret. I haven't even casted it before. I love to watch it. I have a lot of respect for their casters. So, and yeah, I'm always a fan of the parody songs. So I enjoyed it. Looking forward to more.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what Underline does next. So, again, going back to the interview, how did you get to what you do now? Like, what path did you follow from after you left school?
All right, so as I said, I only went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo for a year, ended up dropping out because of World of Warcraft, so I ended up coming back, and at that point I was kind of, just unsure what I was going to do with my life. I was very, very uncertain points, basically got to the point where I was working retail, I was working at Blockbuster, I eventually ended up working at Home Depot, just stuff like that. I occasionally, I started up community college a couple times, I took some general ed classes, just to try to get a feel, of like what I ultimately wanted. And then eventually I remember seeing an ad in not really an ad, but I was looking through the college brochure, seeing some classes that were coming out for the next semester. And I saw one for radio sportscasting. And I'm like, I've always wanted to do this. I've and as this is going to sound really nerdy, but I definitely credit this to helping me. I played Madden. I played NBA 2K games. When I was growing up, I was a big fan of sport games as well as video games on my Genesis and whatnot. My Xbox, I would commentate my own games, like while I'm playing them. I would do that, and I'd even got to the point where even I would play basketball outside on my basketball court, and I would commentate myself playing basketball. It was just something that I did to, kind of enhance the experience, I guess. Mm-hmm. And so, anyways, I saw that ad, and I was like, I got to try this. I got to see what it's about. I went into it, again, still in this very nervous, still in this very, I'm not really a public speaker mindset. I was very scared, but eventually it got to, the class became just gaining experience. And we did the high school football game of the week. It was for the college radio, high school football game of the week. I eventually got started with that. And, obviously we also learned a lot. The teacher's name was John Chalesnik. And I definitely credit a lot of to him for getting me where I'm at as well. He worked for ESPN Radio for a good 10 years or so. So obviously having a teacher like that, especially in a community college course, was definitely something. So Yeah, he taught us a lot. I used that knowledge and information that I got to eventually go into the high school sports broadcasting, and that's from there. Like I was talking to you about this yesterday when we were kind of doing a pre-interview where, especially in the radio industry, it's all about experience. You just need that experience somehow. You got to get it anyhow you can, even if that means getting your own tape recorder, going to a football game, the local high school football game, and just doing your own cast. I mean, hell, you got to get some type of experience. So I figured my way would be try with video games. And back when I started this, it was still very very little, and I still think back to that, how crazy it is, how streaming has just taken off in the last 2 years. I mean, back then, getting a 360p quality stream running at 500 kilobit per second was the max, was like oh my God, this stream is awesome. The fact that I'm even watching what's on your screen is just phenomenal. Here it is 2 years later. If it's not 1080p and free, crisp quality, people are like, what the fuck is this? Why would I watch this? It's not 1080 free. Anyways, that's another side rant. But so yeah, I got started, just picked up Livestream Procaster, and just started doing my own shit. And eventually I got contacted by a guy named Jeff Hunter. He's been involved in the Han Dota scene for a long time, and he had this idea to start something called Honcast, casting for Heroes and Newer at the shoutcasting service. So I said, oh, that's cool. I'll check it out. Before that, I was getting like maybe 10 viewers I was happy to get. So, but then I started with that, and again, I just kind of stuck with it. And the short version, I can talk about it forever, but the short version is eventually came here, and this is where I'm at today. So very, very appreciative of where I've come from.
Did you grew up, of course, gaming, and did you come from a family of gamers? Or
no,
was it not like encouraged or
not encouraged? I wouldn't say so. My like I said, my father, he was always on top of getting the newest technological thing, because that's just the kind of person that he was. So,
right.
The most recent computer, we always built computers all the time together whenever some new things came out. So, he encouraged it in that sense. My mother was always not a fan of it. I mean, she obviously always encouraged, go outside, play with your friends, and which I did. I mean, again, I was an athlete. I was in athletics for my high school years, my school years, pretty much. So, but as far as my family, no, not at all. I mean, they weren't involved in gaming whatsoever. So I was kind of the first of my generation, I guess.
Right. What about what games did you talked about Counter-Strike earlier? What games did you play growing up? What was the first game that you remember ever playing? First video game?
Wolfenstein 3D. That would have to be the first game that I ever remember playing. I'm sure there was maybe some before that, but Wolfenstein is the first one that stands out to me, and killing Nazis, blood everywhere, to say the least. It wasn't. My parents weren't big fans of it, but then eventually went to Duke Nukem, and you get the titties in your face, and that again wasn't really the most liked by my parents. But that, I guess, Wolfenstein would have to be the first game that I can remember that I actually played.
Okay. And question you've probably answered before, but I don't know the answer to. What is the origin of your gamer tag?
It's in two parts: the Breaky and then the CPK. The question I get all the time is actually, what does CPK stand for? No one cares what Breaky and where that came from, of course. But so I'll start with Breaky. So Breaky, pretty much, I've been through several names. My original name was Breakdown DJ. You might even notice. Well, never mind. I won't say that. That would be stupid. Anyways, Breakdown DJ is my name. That and you might say, what's with the DJ? Well, back in middle school, I was actually into the kind of for people that may know, Winamp had a thing called not Shoutcraft. Was it Shoutcraft? I don't know. Something like that. Basically, it was a program that allowed you to stream your music, stream your audio, and people could listen into it. So I ended up doing that for music back when I was in middle school, just to have fun with it, just to test it out. And so that's where I kind of got the Breakdown DJ from. That's where I created my first AIM account. And anyways, eventually went to just Breakdown, took off the DJ. And then it went to I still felt that was a little bit long, so it got to a point where I just started calling myself Breaky because of that. And so, anyways, that's where it comes from. So, the CPK, on the other hand, I have two stories. One's real, one's false. The false story is I always like to say because it's just more entertaining. Our Counter-Strike team was actually sponsored by California Pizza Kitchen. One of our players, his dad was an owner of a California Pizza Kitchen, and we were looking for a sponsorship to go to some lands, and he ended up sponsoring us. That's the story I like to
Nice.
tell. That's not the true story, though. The true story is it. I said earlier, I'm from Poway. It's basically a group of friends that it's just kind of a gaming group that we came up with called CPK, which stands for Crazy Poway Kids. It's also a song name by Unwritten Law, so which is a band, of course. But anyways, Crazy Poway Kids is actually what it stands for.
We're gonna before we go into the last 10 questions, that we'd like to on behind the screens, we'd like to end every show with the same 10 questions. You were about to go into a rant when I asked you about how it is that you got to what you're doing now, and I've drawn a blank on what that rant was going to be about.
What the rant was going to be? Oh, well, what the streaming? I mean,
Oh, right.
with nowadays, how and okay, well, it's one of those things where it's understandable because it has it's a good and a bad. Esports has gotten so big to a point where it's gotten beyond anyone's expectation. I think it's safe to say than it was 2-3 years ago even. That people would have thought at this time, and a lot of that is because of your Twitch TV, because you stream, because of all these streaming services that just popped up. Eventually, XSplit came out, and that became this really easy tool for the dumbest person to use if they wanted to stream, and that it just became like the go-to thing. So, and in that sense, it's great because ultimately it is advertising all these games. It is advertising esports. It's giving that platform to watch television on the internet, but at the same time, it's getting to be very, very, very competitive, and it's getting to the point where, like I said, if you're not 1080p free stream, then people are going to make a huge rant about it. They don't realize ultimately that all the time that a lot of these people invest into it, all the money that they invest into putting production together, but time, like going back to time, that's a big thing as well. And a lot of the people, like I'm pretty sure it's safe to say for yourself, this is all voluntary. This isn't something that everyone that you see on streaming on the Twitch or whatever, they get money and they're like, oh, well, you get ad revenue. Please. Yeah,
that's 0.2 of a cent per person per ad.
Unless you're ITRA or whatever, unless you're streaming to 6,000, 7,000 plus people every single day for 8 to 10 hours a day, constantly spamming ads, you're not making anything worth livable. So. It's ultimately that's the kind of rant that I was going on, where it's unfortunate that we do have a community now that they take it for granted. Ultimately, they take everything for granted. It seems like, and when it comes to these high quality streams, they expect everything to be 1080p free, or else they're gonna make this huge rant on why it's not good. But that's what we gotta deal with.
Hopefully, there's a big enough part of that community that understands that it needs to be paid for in some way. And they're willing to shell something out in order to make it happen.
Yeah.
So, last 10 questions. These are going to be kind of rapid fire. So, what is your favorite game?
Vanilla World of Warcraft.
What is your least favorite game?
Vanilla World of Warcraft. No. World of Warcraft Cataclysm. That's my least favorite because I want to play it. I want to get back into it. I want to be invested into it. But every single time I try, I'm just like, why am I doing this? This is so stupid. This is nothing like it used to be. This is nothing like the good times. And I keep quitting. I've played Cataclysm at least 5 different times and I've quit. It gets so frustrating.
What excites you about gaming?
Esports. That's why, obviously, I do what I do. Esports, I've always been a fan of esports. That goes back to the early Counter-Strike days. Hell, it goes back to Team Fortress Classic. It goes back to even Quake Team Fortress for people that may remember that. That's where I got my competitive online gaming from was Quake Team Fortress. That's where I first started in an online experience and getting somewhat competitive. Um, so yeah, esports in general though, that's the most exciting thing for me.
What turns you off about gaming?
The trolls. Trolls, a lot of the trolls. Of course, being a caster, you tend to draw a lot more than others that aren't on camera or aren't on screen or aren't constantly in that limelight of casting and whatnot. You get your people that it goes back to the people that they're just there to try to make. They ultimately try to make a name for themselves by trolling, by putting down
Right.
others, by trying to hurt others, and it's not a fan of it. But what can you do? You can't let stuff like that get to the ultimate. And obviously, especially being in the Han community, which is widely known as one of the worst, if not the worst, gaming community out there. You have to deal with those constantly on a daily basis. So,
Right.
I don't let them bother me anymore, but it still is frustrating and annoying at times.
What sound in gaming do you really love?
Best impression.
How? How can you like that? It's the
Murloc.
sound of imminent death.
I love the Murlocs.
Okay, what sound in gaming do you really hate?
No, I'm just kidding.
That's the correct answer.
It's a good and a bad. I don't know. What sound do I hate? Uh, I can't think of one off the top of my head, honestly. It's not coming to me, so.
What is your favorite insult to throw at opponents?
Stuffu noob. STAFOO noob. It's a form of STFU.
Right. What profession other than yours would you like to attempt?
It's kind of obviously it's kind of a take on what I do is sportscasting. It's if I was to, if Honcast was to fall through tomorrow, if what I do is to just fall through all of a sudden and I had to choose something else, it would ideally be sportscasting. So, um, some type of media, some type of involvement with sports, because that's ultimately why I got into this in the first place. So,
What profession would you not like to do?
what I not like to do, she's be a referee for sports, because that would suck. It's really, really difficult, and they don't get anywhere near the gratitude that they deserve. But they always, whenever they do something bad, it's amplified tenfold. Whenever they 99.9% of the games that they call good, it's never even talked about. So
Right. Uh, if heaven exists and you could only play one game for all of eternity, what would you play?
um I gotta say it. I've been saying a lot this interview, but Vanilla World of Warcraft, it's hands down the best experience I've ever had on so many levels. And the thing, why the best thing for, especially for a question like that, where if there was a heaven, that's you just played a game for all eternity. It has amazing replay value. I mean, there's just so many things to do in a game like that, and um, it's yeah, the social experience, the how many things you can do, the time you can spend in a game like that. For me, Vanilla World of Warcraft was the best, and I don't think we'll ever see a game like that again, unfortunately, because that was more about the hardcore. That was more about you need to invest time into this. You need to actually get together with 39 other people to accomplish something. Nowadays, it's really just about the money, unfortunately. So.
Is there anything else that you want to talk about in particular?
Obviously, since I'm on here representing, representing myself, of course. I mean, that's is the point of the show. But I do work for Honcast. It's Honcast.com. It's been a fun project, and I still plan to keep it going for many years to come. I've always said, as long as Heroes of New Earth, that's the other thing, of course, I want to talk about a little bit. As long as Heroes of New Earth has a competitive scene, I have no reason to leave it. So, and I by all means think that is still the case, and that's going to be the case, especially with some big events planned in the near future. So, Yeah, I mean, Heroes of New Earth, it is a great game. It is free to play, so if you happen to be tuning in and haven't even tried it yet, if you're a League of Legends player, if you've tried out Dota 2 because you got a beta key, I mean, try out Heroes of New Earth. I really do recommend it because if you're a competitive person, then you will appreciate what it brings to the table. So, but be warned, it can be very hostile. It can be very, very hostile, and you just can't let that get to you. You have to let it go and move on with it. But other than that, there's really not too much else to say. I really do just appreciate the opportunity to come on this and do this interview here. So thanks again, Dak.
Well, thank you for coming on. So do you have any shout-outs?
Well, as far as shout-outs go, shout out to my mother. It turns out she was watching. I wasn't even realizing. Shout out to S2 Games, of course, the creators of Heroes of New Earth. Shout out to my fellows at Honcast as well. And shout out to the community, as I always do at the end of our podcast, because I really do mean it. I am very, very appreciative of where I'm at, and because without the community, I know I wouldn't be in the first place. So big shout out to you guys as well. Shout out to you too, Dak, again.
Well, thank you
For doing this. I think this is a great idea, and I hope to see it many, many episodes to come.
Well, I do too. I'm really looking forward to doing more. I want to give a big shout out to Stim TV and our current sponsor, Underline Entertainment, for everything that Underline has done, for everything that Stim has done to make this show a reality. I want to specifically thank Simpatico, who is our production crew during the show, making sure that that I don't look like too much of a fool on the camera. And there are too many people that I would like to thank, but I will round out the show with the same thing I say every single week. Oh, before I do that, stick around if you want to see the Underline song once again, or if you didn't get to see it in the middle of the show because you had skedaddled off for some reason, or if you hadn't, come in to and watch the show yet. But shame on you for doing that, for coming in late. So stick around for that, and with that, this show will end. This will round out episode 2 of Behind the Screens. Go merrily, and may all your attacks be crits and your loots be fat.
Meet Teddy, 17 years old. Fed up with Zerg and always over droning. He decides to switch to toss, but as he is searching for a match, he has a sudden change of heart, and suddenly, his conscience comes into play.
Alright, stop. Now before you queue in the game with that shameful race that you about to be playing, you better think of the consequence. Why? I'm your pro gaming conscience.
That's nonsense. Go in, proxies are funny. Switch it up to Protoss quick. Cannon is damn made. Telling me sucks dick. Telling me needs to save his base. You'll be safe for days if you proxy raise or 2K just the same.
Yeah, but if the replay leaks and then it shows you the whole forum, they know you and they'll expose you. Think about it before you pick Protoss. Look at your profile, it don't even show loss.
Yo, fuck that. Protoss, bitch. Choose that shit. Can you afford to lose this shit? Are you that big? Why you give a fuck if he cries? Are you that kid? You really think he gives a fuck that you're masters?
Man, don't pick it, cause 4 gate is ridiculous. Don't even risk it. Come on, switch, kid. Don't even listen to suspense. He's bad for you.
You know, Tempo, I don't like your attitude.
Meet Dan, 26 years old. After losing match after match in his division, something smells awfully cheesy when his first pro builds a pylon outside of his opponent's base. Once again, his conscience comes into play.
Now listen to me, while he's macro and free, proxy a pylon and slip in some DTs. Now all you gotta do is A move and he's so screwed.
Yo, he said have fun, don't be so rude. You shouldn't have to cheese to win, that's not fair.
Yo, just look at his rank, you think that I care? Cheese this bitch right here on the spot bed till he rages out and rips out all of his damn hair.
Man, did you see what happened bit by bit?
No, but I seen the 7 racks TLO just did.
Shit, you trying to do anything to prevail?
Man, fuck that. She's this bitch BM and bail.
Meet Brady, a 39-year-old retired Brood War pro. After coming back to the scene with the release of StarCraft 2, he sends a worker to scout around his opponent's base to find a spawning pool completed and 6 Zerglings running into his base.
What the Alright, calm down, relax, start breathing.
Fuck that shit, you just caught this bitch teasing. While you macro up, he's being gay, plus he rolled off. Fuck being a pro, BM this faggot's head off.
Wait, what if there's an explanation for his play?
What, he tripped, fell, landed on 1A?
Alright, don't panic, maybe he's got cannons, but you can still manage without being bad-mannered.
Okay, thought about it, still wanna BM him? Attack him at his choke, hack his rattle and disconnect him? That's what I did, be smart, don't be a retard. You gonna take advice from somebody who cheese white wrong?
What'd you say?
What's wrong, didn't think I remember?
I'ma kill you, motherfucker.
Templar, Mr. Safe, Mr. Pro in the day, Mr. Hey, coming straight out of Boston, y'all better make way. How in the fuck you gonna tell this man how to be managed?
Cause he can still win by playing it standard. Macro, oh fuck it, what am I saying? Tease this new Brady, where's your forge at?